America used to launch the Forever Wars. The Forever Wars were about increasing American leadership primacy through the region, American hegemony. That's what their purpose is. Now, the threat of the wars, what's happened in Ukraine, what's happening against Iran, is about the internal American war. It's about disrupting Trump, disrupting him on Ukraine by pulling him into a situation where he's compelled to escalate and can't go off and sit and talk to Putin. And it's also intended to pull Trump into, with his heavy promotion of Israel firsters into his team, pull Trump into, first of all, becoming a co-conspirator in what Netanyahu has been doing, with all the carnage that it has entailed, and even take it to war with Iran, because ultimately Netanyahu has been wanting an American, if you like, security state, has been arguing really since 9/11. It was the first time in 9/11 that they said the ultimate aim is for war with Iran. Why war with Iran? Not because it's threatening Israel directly, but because Iran, 98% of its oil goes not to Europe, to China. And China is very dependent on Iranian. But more than that, the whole investments, the heavy investments of China, of Russia in the BRICS corridor, we call it the BRICS corridor in the heartland of Asia, is really dependent on Iran for the corridors, for the trading corridors, north, south, and east, west, and also Iran's, if you like, trading expertise in the region. It's absolutely important to the whole, if you like, conjuncture of China, Russia, and Iran, is to keep Iran. So collapsing Iran is probably seen by some in Washington as a means to contain China, to weaken China. Not just Iran, but to weaken China.
Alastair Crooke highlights a significant shift in America's approach to war. What were once forever wars aimed at maintaining U.S. dominance have now become tools for internal political battles. These wars no longer solely focus on global hegemony, but serve to undermine Donald Trump and entangle him in conflicts he might otherwise avoid. To understand the gravity of Crooke's remarks, we need to explore America's historical use of war as a tool of dominance, how Iran fits into the broader strategy, and why the stakes are now higher than ever for global power dynamics. For decades, the United States has engaged in prolonged conflicts, from Vietnam to Afghanistan and Iraq. These wars were framed as necessary to combat threats like communism and terrorism. However, beneath the surface, their true purpose was to establish and maintain American primacy in key regions. The Middle East, in particular, has been a focal point. Control over this region means control over the world's most important energy resources. The U.S. understood that maintaining influence here was crucial to its global dominance. This is why, despite changing justifications, from weapons of mass destruction to nation building, the wars continued. But something has changed. The focus has shifted from external dominance to internal political warfare. As Crooke points out, the conflict in Ukraine is as much about trapping Trump as it is about weakening Russia. Trump's inclination toward diplomacy, especially with figures like Putin, poses a threat to the establishment's long-term goals. By pulling Trump into the Ukraine crisis, the aim is to force his hand. If he escalates, he alienates his base. If he seeks peace, he's branded as weak or a traitor. It's a political trap designed to limit his options and undermine his leadership. Iran has always been a target for U.S. foreign policy hawks. Since the Islamic Revolution in 1979, Iran has been portrayed as a rogue state, a sponsor of terrorism, and a threat to regional stability. But as Crooke highlights, the real reason for America's obsession with Iran goes far beyond these narratives. Iran sits at the heart of a new global order emerging in Eurasia. This order is being shaped by the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, who seek to challenge Western dominance. Iran's geographical position and energy resources make it a crucial player in this new order. Crooke emphasizes the concept of the BRICS corridor, a network of trade routes that connect Asia, Europe, and Africa. Iran is a vital link in this network, providing access to both the north-south and east-west corridors. Disrupting Iran means disrupting the entire BRICS initiative. For China, Iran is a lifeline. Nearly all of Iran's oil exports, 98%, go to China. This makes Iran essential for China's energy security. But it's not just about oil. Iran's infrastructure projects, trade routes, and partnerships with China are critical to the success of the Belt and Road Initiative. Russia, too, views Iran as a key ally. The two nations have collaborated in Syria, countered U.S. influence in the Middle East, and worked together on energy projects. For Russia, keeping Iran strong is essential to maintaining its own influence in the region. Alastair Crooke sheds light on Netanyahu's long-standing desire for a U.S.-led war against Iran. Since the early 2000s, Israeli leaders have argued that Iran poses an existential threat. But Crooke argues that the real motive is strategic. A weakened Iran benefits Israel by eliminating a regional rival. But more importantly, it serves U.S. interests by undermining China and Russia. Netanyahu's push for war aligns with Washington's broader strategy of containing emerging powers. By drawing Trump into this conflict, the goal is twofold: to tie him to Netanyahu's agenda and to entangle him in a war that serves the establishment's interests. Crooke suggests that Trump's close ties to pro-Israel advisors make him vulnerable to this manipulation. Crooke's analysis points to a deeper conflict within the U.S., a war between Trump and the political establishment. This establishment, deeply entrenched in Washington, sees Trump as a threat to the status quo. His America First policies, calls for ending endless wars, and willingness to engage with adversaries like Putin challenge decades of U.S. foreign policy doctrine. Ukraine and Iran are battlegrounds in this internal war. The establishment seeks to trap Trump, forcing him into decisions that align with their goals. For Trump, navigating this landscape is a delicate balancing act. If he escalates conflicts, he risks alienating his base, who supported him for his promises to end wars. If he seeks peace, he faces backlash from both political opponents and the media. It's a no-win situation designed to weaken his leadership. At the heart of this strategy is the containment of China. As Crooke explains, weakening Iran is seen as a way to strike at China's energy security and disrupt its economic ambitions. China's rise as a global power has been meteoric. Its Belt and Road Initiative aims to connect the world through trade and infrastructure. But this initiative depends on stable partners, and Iran is one of the most important. By destabilizing Iran, the U.S. hopes to disrupt China's plans, weaken its energy security, and slow its economic growth. It's a high-stakes game with global implications. A war with Iran would have catastrophic consequences. The Middle East is already a tinderbox, and any conflict could spiral out of control. Oil prices would skyrocket, triggering a global economic crisis. Regional allies like Saudi Arabia and the UAE would be drawn in, further destabilizing the region. Moreover, such a war would alienate America's European allies, many of whom are already skeptical of Washington's aggressive stance. It would also push China and Russia closer together, strengthening their alliance against the West. Alastair Crooke's insights reveal the complex and dangerous dynamics at play in U.S. foreign policy. The conflicts in Ukraine and against Iran are not just about geopolitics, they are about internal power struggles within the United States. For Trump, navigating this landscape will be one of his greatest challenges. For the world, the stakes couldn't be higher. The outcome of these conflicts will shape the future of global power for decades to come. According to Alastair Crooke, America used to launch forever wars to maintain its dominance and increase its hegemony in key regions. These wars were tools to assert American primacy and leadership. However, the current threats, like the conflicts in Ukraine and with Iran, are different. They are part of an internal American struggle aimed at undermining Trump. In Ukraine, the goal is to trap Trump into a position where he is forced to escalate, preventing him from engaging in peace talks with Putin. The same strategy is being used with Iran, leveraging Trump's strong ties to pro-Israel figures. The intention is to pull him into alignment with Netanyahu's agenda, making him complicit in the ongoing carnage. and potentially even pushing for a war with Iran. Netanyahu has long sought American backing for a confrontation with Iran. This desire dates back to 9/11, when some in the U.S. security establishment identified Iran as the ultimate target. But this isn't because Iran poses a direct threat to Israel. The real reason is geopolitical. 98% of Iran's oil exports go to China, making Iran a vital energy supplier. More importantly, Iran is central to the massive investments by China and Russia in the BRICS trade corridors, north-south and east-west, that traverse the heart of Asia. Iran's strategic position and trade expertise are crucial to the broader China-Russia-Iran alliance. For some in Washington, collapsing Iran is not just about weakening Tehran, but also about containing and undermining China. Disrupting Iran's role in these trade networks would deal a significant blow to China's economic ambitions and influence in the region. Thanks for watching.